Hi, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about artificially reproductive technologies such as IVF or IUI, and I'm going to talk about those methods through more critical lens. So I would like to talk about the ideas that surround artificial reproductive technologies, but maybe there are the ideas that maybe we don't talk as much about, and maybe we are not even aware about them. So in today's video, I'm going to be using the artificial reproductive technologies term as an umbrella term for IVF, IUI, ICSI, and other methods. And for example, IVF, it is a method where a woman is being given a lot of hormone medication to stimulate the ovaries and to produce the follicles. After the follicles are ready for the collection, they are collected, and then in petri dish they are mixed with sperm. And after the fertilization occurs, so after we have the blastocysts, which they might be like 3 days old or 5 days old, they are being transferred to womb. And IUI, on the other hand, is always described as less invasive because perhaps it involves less scans, it involves less perhaps medication as well. And in the case of IUI, again, the sperm is being collected, but it's being washed, and then it's injected directly into the womb. And ICSI, on the other hand, is perhaps the one that is more expensive and perhaps maybe more involves more technology. So here the single cell of sperm is being injected into the egg, and once the fertilization occurs, again the blastocyst is being transferred into the womb. So in the UK, about 1 in 7 couples are being affected by fertility issues, and very often they are then referred to fertility clinic, where they are being offered one of those treatments. And one of the most common treatments that are being offered is IVF. The European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology reported that in mid-2018 there was already over 10 million babies born as a result of artificial reproductive technology. The International Committee of Monitoring Artificial Reproductive Technologies reported that between 1991 and 2014, there have been about 2 million of cycles being performed, but only 500,000 of them have actually resulted in live births. And the International Committee of Monitoring Artificial Reproductive Technology reported that between 1991 and 2013, there have been about 2 million of treatment cycles performed, and only about 500,000 of them resulted in live births. And this suggests that perhaps IVF, IUI, and artificial reproductive technologies in general, they still have a relatively low success rate. And what that means as well, that many people who actually undergo these treatments, then they suffer from consequences of not actually ending up with a baby, which, it might be miscarriages, no conception at all, stillbirth, bereavement. And so very often perhaps people are then being left with dealing with perhaps anxiety, depression, stress, bereavement, and possibly there's not enough actually talk about that. So perhaps the first source of information for people about artificial reproductive technology, I think very often maybe is GP, where maybe very often when people, they will refer themselves to GPs and ask for maybe some tests, and after the tests are being done, then they possibly might be referred to fertility clinic. Sometimes it might be that they might be referred to fertility clinic directly, and the fertility clinic will carry on those tests. One cycle of IVF costs about £5,000, but that's really like estimate, because they can really vary between the clinics, might vary as well depending on the cycle, that specific cycle for the person, because the IVF treatments, they can also be slightly different depending on maybe certain medical conditions that the person might have. And as well, the IUI may vary between maybe 700 to £1,500. Again, it might really vary. And how long the couple will remain within the treatment, it also depends perhaps on, you know, how much they can invest in this, on their finances. And as well, perhaps it will depend as well on how determined they are to actually have a baby, and how much they can take of that emotional strain as well. NHS offers up to 3 free cycles of artificial reproductive technologies, and most of those free cycles are being actually conducted within Scotland. So about 60% of those free cycles are being conducted in Scotland, and then the rest of the UK depends on your postcode. So in some postcodes you might be offered 3 free cycles, in other you might be offered only 1 free cycle, and in some other postcodes maybe the treatment will be free, but then you have to pay for your medication, which is also really expensive. For some people, artificial reproductive technologies, they might be the last resort for them to have a child, depending on their medical conditions. But because perhaps of the long waiting time, perhaps because of the really high cost of those treatments, actually they might not be able to access them. And that might only increase the stress, anxiety, and depression that perhaps they might be already experiencing because of lack of children. And all that perhaps might be coming to the fact that within certain families and societies, there's actually lack of acceptance of childlessness. What is also important to add at this point is that very often people, they don't end up actually having one cycle, but they actually keep on having more and more cycles. So that means then they need to deal with multiple miscarriages, multiple failed cycles, increasing perhaps their stress, anxiety, depression. When we read online certain definitions of artificial reproductive technologies, when we read articles, or maybe when we go into the websites of private clinics, when we read about those treatments, perhaps sometimes some of those definitions and descriptions are really lacking the information about the consequences of, you know, what happens when the cycle fails, what happens when 2 or 3 cycle fails, what happens then to the person that need to then live with the consequences of that unsuccessful treatment. And as well, what happens with the people who are being left then in debt, because sometimes people, they take loans and they use their credit cards to pay for the treatment because of really high costs. And there is also a possibility that perhaps the way IVF sometimes is being portrayed, described, it might be presented to people as more successful, as more easy than actually it is in practical life. Perhaps very often artificial reproductive technologies, they might be portrayed, described in that way, because actually artificial reproductive technologies is being described by many authors, many researchers, as a growing business. So within in the UK, the IVF market has been predicted to reach about 900 million by 2026. And this is not to say that the IVF or other artificial reproductive technologies being bad or dangerous for us. It's more about bringing awareness to what the artificial reproductive technologies are, what are the consequences of actually undergoing them, and as well helping people to make more informed choices regarding their treatments. So yeah, thank you for watching, and if you are interested in topics related to artificial reproductive technology, infertility, mental health, then please subscribe, like this video, and then leave a comment, and if you have any questions, then yeah, feel free to ask me. All right, thank you. Bye!